Very good evening, everyone. Today we are here with yet another virtual session. And today we are here with the speaker, Ashwathika Ashok, Dr. Ashwathika Ashok, who is a naturopathy doctor who graduated from JSS. She is also certified as sexuality educator and a pranic healer. She is being trying to educate people on menstrual hygiene and wellness through her sessions under the name of Happy Periods in the past 2 years. She has completed around 8 sessions, reaching out to hundreds of people in different modalities. The mission to provide the basic and necessary information that helps in breaking the taboo around menstruation. She creates awareness around creating a healthy lifestyle. She had won state level championship in yoga practices, yoga based on therapeutic effects. She's managing her sessions through online yoga programs, and she promotes and create awareness through different ways through her Instagram channel, House of Nature Cure. She uses social media as a platform to connect and educate people on all the topics mentioned above. So with this small introduction, I welcome Dr. Ashwathika on our platform On Your Growth. Thank you so much for joining and giving your time with all of us.
It's absolutely my pleasure. Thank you for those sweet introduction anyways. Yeah. So hello everyone. I hope we are very few people, so it will be good if we have some interactive session further. So is it okay for all of you to switch on your videos? Will that be fine? Let's have an interactive session. So I think that would be of more uh, more use than me talking completely and going. And even this PPT that I've designed is it has only questions, more of questions. So I can get to know your views as well. So we can make it more interesting and we can make it more useful in from the point of view or in the perception of or how or in the way we perceive sex education, like how it would be useful in our practice or how we are currently perceiving and how it should be perceived. So it will be an easier way if it's an interactive session. So let's go into the session. The first thing is what is sexuality health education? I am very much sure that a lot of us would have heard about sexuality health education in the recent times. So there's a lot of buzz happening in and around this topic, and there are a lot of people who are not medical professionals who take up the sex education and are teaching to the general public. So we all would have had a little idea about what is it. So can anyone tell me what, according to you, is sexuality health education? So Azuma says educating people on safe and healthy sexual and reproductive practices, skills building to help young people communicate about and make informed decisions regarding sex and their sexual health. Uh, okay. So I think that is a part of sexuality health education. So whenever I mention sex ed here or sex education here, please consider to be sexuality health education, and it's not sexual education or this term sex in any way doesn't denote only sexual practices. Okay, so what is sexuality? When we look into the sexuality, most of us think that it is concerned or it is related to the sexual practices or it is related to somebody's sexual life alone or reproductive life alone, but it is not actually the fact. There are a lot of definitions for sexuality as we have come across. If you see the books from our school age, we would have learned different definitions on health, but somewhere we could relate to this definition of WHO, right? The same way WHO also has a definition for sexuality. I'm very bad at letting out or saying those definitions as such, but I'd like to explain what is that. So what is that sexuality? So they see sexuality, or WHO says that sexuality is the core around which one can be a human all throughout his life. So this is the core from which your humanity or you being human comes out. So what all comes in this sexuality? The thoughts that you have, your actions, your beliefs, your attitude, the desires that you have, the wishes that you have, your fantasies, or anything that you do in your life is revolved around this sexuality. So, is revolved around this sexuality. But how? See, sexuality is not sex. It is more than just acts of sex, and it includes like a person's to put it very simply, it is like when you talk about sexuality, it includes who you are, your sexual identity, your gender identity, everything falls into sexuality, right? And then how you perceive other beings around you is based on your sexuality. So when, see, a person who is I'm putting it very simple. We're all heterosexuals, and then not we're all, like generally, if you're taking in one person to be a heterosexual, and then this person has feelings towards the opposite gender. Whereas when you take a homosexual, this person does not have feelings towards the opposite gender, right? So the way you perceive persons, or the way you see persons, perceive things around you, everything depends, or everything coexists with this factor called as the sexuality. So when it comes to sexuality health education, it speaks about everything right from a person's birth, or a person's body, a person's thoughts, a person's feelings. It gives you the pathway to understand and to treat that particular person in a better way as an individual, or as a person, what he is or she is, so, or what they are. So it is not like you have some set of rules and you follow that for everyone. I don't know how effective you could treat that person. But then when you are able to understand that particular person from their perspective, from their own nature, I think we all could be better doctors, treat them better. Would we not do that? I think that would be a better way to treat people. What do you guys think about it? While you're putting your thoughts in the chat box, I'll just let you know. So how you can learn sexuality health education. So there are different courses, but then what I would emphasize is that sexuality health education cannot be learned from a set of textbooks, from a set of research papers, or from a set of anything. It is all experiences put together, but we will be able to get the basics of it through a variety of textbooks. And sexuality health education is not a topic that is restricted to a 1 hour conversation. So today we are going to see about sexuality health education, but we are not going to learn it in detail. It's just like an introduction to how this can help us in our practice. Okay. And so I think the first question that you would get now would be, I am a doctor already. I've attended medical school like for 5.5 years. So why should I be learning sex education? I already know about it all, right? Does any of you have this question? So the answer to this question is that, see, there are a lot of researches that state why doctors need sex education. But more than that, I see this to be the important point at this point of time to be delivered to you all. Like whole through the medical education years that we get, like maybe 5.5 years or 4.5 years of theory. So the percentage of sexuality health education that is being imparted to us, or how much we learn through our textbooks or through the doctors who teach us, is only 3 to 10%. And this 3 to 10% is like very minimal. And most of us are not even aware that we have learned this all across, right? A lot of us, when it comes to textbooks, when we learn things, yeah, it is all good. We would be able to do it better in the theory exams and the practicals and everywhere. But then when it comes to dealing with the patient, a lot of times we ourselves would have felt hesitant at some point of time. We would have been like, I'm okay with asking this, but would that patient be okay with answering this? How do I put it in a better way? But a lot of times we would not know that this person's gender identity, maybe, for example, is totally different. So we would have taken the conversation in an entirely different way, and later would have understood, no, this is not how I should have taken this conversation. So all these are like, though, and there are here, we would also have this doubt, like, this is not something where you develop your personality as a doctor to build up case studies, or to build up case history, your case history taking skills. It's like you put the questions appropriately in an appropriate way to that particular patient. So For example, if you're going to get one patient who is coming in, and this patient seems like he or she doesn't have so much of problem around the physique or the physical body, and then you understand there's something that has to do with her psychological thinking or her spiritual aspects or something. But how would you actually start the conversation with? Is there any idea on how you can actually start this conversation? So I'm just putting a situation here. You get a patient, and this patient is complaining you a lot of things, but you don't find anything relevant with the person's body. So you now understand that this person's body has nothing to do with it, but there should be the involvement of either his or her psychological self or spiritual self or something related like that. So now how would you take this case further? So this is where sexuality health education is going to help you. You would be having exposure to a lot of different perspectives of persons based on their sexuality. So now you would get an idea of how to deal with this particular patient from this juncture. So this is why we need sex education as a doctor. Okay. So is sex, gender, and sexuality the same? So all of us definitely would have come across these terms like sex, gender, sexuality not more common, but sex and gender, yes. So here, like we would have come across these two terms, sex and gender, more often, like in our case sheets or in a lot of places. Okay, so even before choosing this medical field, in a lot of places we would have seen the sex and gender terms used in application forms and in a lot of things. So what do you think is the difference, or is there not any difference between these terms? Anybody? You can unmute yourself, you can put it in the chat box. So yes, they are different from each other, but what is the difference is that sex is something that is assigned to you biologically. Like you're born with an XX chromosome, then you are a female. You're born with an XY chromosome, then you are a male. You're born with an XXY, then you are a transgender. So we have this assigned biological sex, and we call that as sex. So what is gender then? I've explained sex to you. What is gender then? Can these terms be used in places of each other? Can it be? No, because gender is a biological construct. So it is how I think of myself. If you see this picture, this gender comes from your brain. This gender comes from your brain, whereas your sex comes from your biological self, your chromosomes. And sexuality is a total combo of all of these things that you have in yourself. Your gender identity, your sexual expressions, your desires, your fantasies. It is like a whole combo, or it is like the holding point for all of these to be put together. Whereas gender is the biological construct. Like I might be a born female, but I could think of myself to be a male, right? So when I think of myself to be a male, my gender is male, but my sex is female. So it's just an example. Don't take it just like that, but it's just an example. So sex is your biological determination. Gender is what you think of yourself, or what you give yourself a title. The title that you give yourself would be gender, and sexuality is something that holds all of these together. Okay. So why is sex education important in healthcare? So all of us are here today because we think somewhere sex education is important for us in giving proper healthcare to our patients, right? So if we consider it that way, what made you think that sex education is important in healthcare? Okay, so basically we're all naturopaths. All of us here today are naturopaths. We all aim at giving holistic care, don't we? We all want to treat the patient holistically as a whole. We do not see the disease as one. Okay, many issues, because sexuality is one of the determinants of health, Very good. That was an amazing answer. Many issues start from basic relationship and psychological issues here. And okay, we see the person as a whole. Though this person comes to us with a complaint of one particular disease or one particular symptom, we as naturopaths are taught or are we learn to see them as a whole, and we tend to treat them from the root cause. So sexuality completes this wholeness. It's not just your body, it's not just your mind. So when we say yoga, we say because it's a very holistic medicine because it concentrates on both your body and mind. But to be very frank, sexuality is a component in that, which we sometimes miss. So for us to be shrewd about this aspect, for us to be clear about this aspect, sexuality health education helps us. So when we bring that into this holistic healthcare, our standard of healthcare is our standard of healthcare ups its game. I would say it is like you are able to truly to do justice to what you say as the holistic healthcare. Okay. Do patients really want their doctors to talk about sexuality? So sometimes we feel like, is it our duty to actually talk about it? Will patients be comfortable with us talking about all this? So when we ask ourselves this question, most of us do not have the answer. And it says that 90% of the patients who come to the doctors do not know how to express or they are hesitant to talk about it, and they are looking forward for their doctors to initiate the conversation. So it's very clear that we cannot abruptly initiate a conversation that the patient hasn't initiated, but we must know how to actually put this into a better way. So we are able to get the information from the patient, and that also gives a sense of relief to the patient that they have been able to convey what they really wanted to convey. Am I right? Yes. Will that be an easier thing for us to do and the patients to feel comfortable? Will that be? Yes, it would be, right? So the patients have to come up, or the patients cannot actually come up with everything that they think. Most of the times it happens with their bodily issues as well. They forget what they feel. They forget sometimes like how they have been in the past, like 3-4 days back. Sometimes they do not know how to express how they have felt. Sometimes they feel hesitant to talk about a particular symptom that they are facing. And then we initiate conversations in a more polished way that they are able to converse so comfortably with us, right? So the same way it happens in sexuality also. It is important for us to initiate certain conversations in an appropriate, prompt way that the patient is feeling comfortable with us to talk about it, and at the same time the patient has that feeling of letting it out. So in that way, it is very, very important for us to understand and initiate conversations. So next. So what is our role in preaching sex ed to the society? Are we really, or to put it very clear, so where do we stand as doctors in preaching sex ed to the society? As I already mentioned, we see a lot of non-medical professionals taking up this path and educating a lot of people on sex education. But when there are already so many people that way, what is our role in bringing out this topic of sexuality health education to the people around us, to the general public? What do you think it is? Okay. So incorporating them in clinical practice, especially, see, we are those people who get the chance to actually deal with healthcare in person. People who give sessions, they do it in group. People who give particularly sex ed classes can do it only to those people who seek that. But when it comes to healthcare, a lot of people generally seek healthcare in one or the other way. It might be starting from a simple rejuvenation to any chronic illness that they are facing. We get to see a lot of people in person, and we have the chance to actually put in an information in a very appropriate timing. So when they come to us with some particular healthcare issues, and if we are able to deal with it in a very nice way, and if we are able to give them the information that they want at that particular time, it is like you're going to give them the information that they need at a very critical time, so they are able to perceive it better, and they understand the importance more better than me going. Then consider I am not a doctor and I'm going to a public place, and I'm trying to create some awareness on sexuality health education. I will be able to do that, but then if I'm trying to put it 100%, the amount that they will perceive would be only 10%. Whereas when you as a doctor tries to do the same thing, that would go into the person like more than 70%, because our society is something which is framed up to be one where, though they Google up and come and they put in more questions and sometimes question the efficacy or question the skills of the doctor, once they start believing the doctor, they tend to accept things that the doctor say. So playing such an important role, I think we have that responsibility. We have that, of course, a little higher chance to actually preach sex ed to a lot of people. So it's always better when we do it in the right path. So now, being a 21st century, like we are now in the 21st century, right? So, okay. So at this point of time, how many hospitals do you think provide LGBTQIA inclusive healthcare? So by now, a lot of you here should have been working. Some of you might have been studying. So all of us would have had the experience or exposure to certain hospitals. Have you seen any hospitals, or how many hospitals have you come across that actually has LGBTQIA inclusive healthcare? Have you heard or have you come across any of them? 1, 2, 3, any number of hospitals. It's very saddening to say that a lot of hospitals are not pride inclusive or LGBTQIA inclusive. And when it comes to doctors as well, as I already said, it's in medical education, we are not taught sex ed to a level that we should have been taught. So what happens is that a lot of times it goes like the people from the LGBTQIA spectrum or the pride spectrum doesn't feel comfortable to come up and discuss their health issues. And because of this, a lot of those people have a lot of health issues that can be easily resolved untreated, so which then leads to chronic illness. So being doctors, I think as we step into this field, we all get that vibe, or we all have that ambition or aim or goal to serve the community better, right? So to serve the community better, when you say community, it should be an inclusive healthcare. If we could not initiate inclusivity, who else could? So sexuality health education helps you do that, because a lot of us do not know how to actually respond and how to actually treat people from that spectrum. So when we are generally seeing patients, and when a pregnant woman comes to us, sometimes we feel like, oh, is this right, what I'm doing right now to her? Is the advice that I'm giving her right now? No, we do not know. We have that oscillation, right? The same way we get oscillations when someone with a different need comes to us, someone with the same need but in a little modified way comes to us also, it becomes difficult for us. So when we get to learn this inclusive criteria, or this when we get to know about the whole of the spectrum, it might become easier for us as well to handle, and also it will also give a chance for us to actually come up with an inclusive healthcare which would be helpful to a lot of people in and around the communities that we are living in. Does sexuality play a role in the treatment or prognosis of various diseases? So now we saw about how it helps us in treating, but does it actually affect the prognosis of the disease? Yes. When you're not considering this aspect of sexuality, there is one aspect which lays untreated or which goes unnoticed, but it is still affecting the patient in some way. Okay, so when we are not able to deal with that aspect, the prognosis is definitely affected. So you try to do your best in a lot of ways, but then leaving this one particular aspect is like forgetting the cherry in the cake. So we would have noticed a lot of patients who come to us and they'll be doing fine, but there is something which is disturbing them all through. And a lot, in most cases, it might be something which comes under this wide topic of sexuality. It might be their emotions, it might be their desires, it might be um, the beliefs that they have in something. Everything we have to, like, we have everything under this one particular topic, and then there is some little part of this topic that goes unnoticed, and if it is going to affect the prognosis of the patient, it is something which we must notice and which we must take care of, right? So the answer to this question in simple words is yes, it does affects, and the only way that we could handle with it is knowing about sexuality ourselves first, so that it becomes easier to deal with the patients next. Will sex education benefit you as a person rather than as a physician? So so all of us are doctors. So so all that we have been talking about till now is about how sexuality health education is important in healthcare. How can we incorporate it in our practice? Why should we do it in the practice? Why, and what? But does it help you as a person? Yes, no. Sex education would definitely help you, or would definitely benefit you as a person first. So we were talking so much about the patients that we are going to deal with, but considering ourselves as an individuals, a lot of us are still in oscillations, are still in a lot of doubts, and are still in a lot of uh, unclear state of mind about our own sexuality. What do we believe in? Is this my attitude? Is this what I really want? Is this what I really want to do? When there is such an unclear mind with our own self, that definitely affects our practice as well. But then when you're not able to know what you have in yourself, like an empty vessel cannot pour more. So you have to fill in your vessel first. So then you are able to fill in the vessels of your patients next. So the first thing is that when you are able to like understand sexuality education, you would be able to understand yourself better. Understanding yourself better would be the first step in your whole life of practice, and that is going to help you in a lot of ways. So this is one important factor that all of us should consider in learning or in taking up sexuality health education. So are the terms body neutrality, sexuality, and health correlated? So now you have this one thing called as body shaming, the other thing called as body positivity, both the extremes. And here we are not knowing what to do. So there is a lot of uh, contradictory statements that we come across. We have patients who come to us saying statements in regard to their body that sometimes doesn't go with us, that sometimes doesn't go with their own self. But then there are some powerful societal influences that they face, and then there are some really negative traumatic experiences that they have faced in the earlier life, which has put in them a lot of strong belief that is not going to help them. So here, how sexuality plays a role is that letting them know of how their body could be, or what is the nature of the body, or how, like, to put it very simply, I would say, see, a person comes to you asking for weight loss, and the time duration that they say is, I wanted to lose so much of weight in so much time. And you say, no, that is not possible. So this cannot be done in this particular period of time. Each body is different, and we have our own philosophies to talk to them. But at the end of the day, all that they want is the numbers and the days that they have. So they go. So here we know that it is not going to help them in any way. It's not going to be good for them. But then what can help you in making that particular patient understand is that to let them know that these bodies are normal. This thing that happened to you is not normal. These are the causes, and this can affect you in this way. So to tell that in with non-medical terms to make them understand how it works. Sexuality helps. So you're going to talk to a person about body positivity, that doesn't help. But you talking to them about body neutrality definitely helps. You cannot just tell them at that point of time, just enjoy your body, be with your body. That I do not know how many of them are going to accept. But when you're able to put the facts in front of them, talking about how they can perceive or they can change their perception towards what they have now, will definitely help. And when it comes to body neutrality and sexuality and health, I would like to say that there are a lot of emphasis that is put on one particular individual at different stages of life. And of course, their sexuality is also dependent on that. So when we are better understanding of that particular aspect of sexuality, it will be easy for us to direct them towards a better understanding towards their bodies, so they are able to walk their way towards better health. And do you think, as a naturopathic physician, all of us would have a role in bringing an understanding about natural body or self? So we talk about normal bodies, abnormal bodies, normalcies, and abnormalcies. But there is something beyond all this called as the natural self, which the patient should first know. A lot of patients that comes to us do not know their own body parts. They sometimes do not know how to express where the pain exactly is. So if sexuality health education helps you to teach them better about their own body parts, their own body organs, then that is going to be of great help to the patient as well as to you. Sometimes we do not know how to teach them where is this part of the body, how do they tell that. So this sexuality health education at that point of time helps the patient as well as you to make them know or to make them understand their own bodies or the natural existence of human bodies. So it will be easier for us as physicians to treat them. So one question that I have to all of you here is that, are you or have you been confident as a doctor to talk or initiate a conversation on sexuality at any point of time? Have you? Not that confident? Not yet, no. So I would say this confidence comes with us being able to talk to ourselves in more in more refined terms. Like sometimes we ourselves do not know how to mention this particular part of sexuality in a proper term. So we use general terms that we have come across in our own lives from earlier to later. Then we would be like, should I say this? Can I say this to this patient? Is it appropriate for me to talk this way? Will it be okay? No, I don't know if I can. So this takes a longer time. So I would say this is my first sex ed session that I'm handling after me having read sex education 1 year before, after me having practiced it for 1 year about like how I could incorporate into healthcare, how I could actually put it into the framework of the healthcare that I'm giving in. So even after all that, it seems a little difficult to put things in appropriate way. It takes a little time for me as a doctor, for me as a person to come up and talk here. So it takes a longer time. So where should the sexuality health education start is from the first year of your medical school. So when you're able to, I at least from the first year of your medical school. So I would say there is no particular age from where you can start learning sex education. So it is like it starts from when you're born. It starts from when you're able to converse to your mother, when you're able to converse with actions, when you're able to converse with cries and sounds and stuff like that. So sexuality health education actually starts there. But considering the community around which we would have all been brought up in, I do not know how many of us would have had that opportunity to receive that right kind of sexuality health education. So most of us, 99% of us, would have not. But later in life, when we were growing up, some of us would have had the opportunity to perceive it better, some of us would have not. So at least when we are deciding to become doctors, we should be able to process it properly from the initial stages, so we are able to give it better when we are actually coming out as doctors. And then so sex education for kids, what do you say about that? There is a lot of emphasis nowadays, like it's very mandatory for all the school kids to have sex education as a part of their curriculum. It's very mandatory for kids to have sex education in their own homes, and we do get to see patients who are kids. So how do you think it would have an impact on these kids? One simple thing that I've always seen and understood is that most of the times when parents takes their kids to the consultations, it is only the parents that keep talking. That kid would be like 8-year-old, 9-year-old. They would have been better at talking. They know what they want. They do not know what, they know what they want. They do not want others to actually speak up for them. But then they also do not know how to express what they feel at that point of time. So the information that we receive is what the parents perceived. It is not from what the kids actually feel. It's not about what kids are actually undergoing. So at that point of time, we would have also seen certain doctors say, let the kids speak, you don't speak. So at that time, the kid gets an opportunity to speak, but there are certain factors that doesn't allow the kid, or that doesn't encourage the kid to express what is really happening. They do not know how to do that. So I would say, in terms of healthcare, sex education is important for kids, for, as I already mentioned, for anyone from their birth. So it is very easier for them to actually convey their needs in and around healthcare, in and around other general happenings as well. So that is very, very essential. It is not even something which is an extra thing. It's something very essential. So if that happens, like if everybody is aware of what is happening in and around them, then there would be no separate need of this sex ed sessions here and there. There would not be any difficulties in processing health, in processing sexuality in for us as a community. So it has been like around an hour now. So do you feel that you are, or we are all fully equipped in this topic of sexuality? Yes? No? That is the truth. No. This 1 hour cannot do any justice to learning sexuality health education. It, as Azuma says, yes, it is certainly a progress in an hour, but it is definitely a no, as others also say. So like, it is like you have had one little clarity of how the sexuality health education can help us in bettering our healthcare, or in making our healthcare practices more efficient. But this is not all about sexuality health education. It is a very, very, very vast topic that requires more of our interest, more of our time, more of our skills to actually learn it better and to impart it better. So when we are able to put in little efforts like this, and then gather little informations, and then equip ourselves with better informations, at the end of the day, sexuality health education would have its say. And when there comes a say that way, our healthcare would definitely be something which we would have not imagined before. I could say that sexuality health education has helped me in dealing with certain cases in a better way. So it comes with experience for all of us. When we are able to feel that through experience, we would definitely understand the need for it. And when we are able to give it better, who would not want to learn about it, right? So yes. So this was a very basic intro session to what sexuality health education is. If you have any doubts, or if you want to say something, ask something, you're free to do it right now.
Thank you so much, Ashwathika. That wonderful presentation. I will ask, I do have few questions. If anyone is there, please do ask to present your questions in chat box, or you can unmute. As a doctors, you can directly talk, you can represent yourself and get clarity of what you should do in your clinical practice. My first question, what I should understand from your this whole class. So there is
Yeah.
a term called PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, which is
Yeah.
much more related with the topic sex education. Like most of the people who suffer from PTSD have the consequences of this education, which was not there or which was lacked in the people. So Indian population has that burden in the year of 10 to 19 years. So how do we as a naturopath doctor intervene in that period of 10 years to 19 years to improve that quality of education? As a doctors, we say we are teachers too. So I need your input that how we can introduce ourselves or intervene in that period of time to improve this field of education.
Okay, that was an amazing question. So I would say that I have come across a lot of sex educators otherwise who are non-medical professionals. So with the same thing, PTSD and with school sex education, they are trying a lot. But the success rate is not what they expect. They are not able to impart it in the schools, in school going kids, in those age groups. It becomes very difficult for them as well. So and it is because they are not a community of people who have been into this healthcare, or to say more than who have been into healthcare. They are not those community of people who have had this chance to learn about human bodies from before, and that in a way makes people hesitant to accept or to let them get into uh, that group of school going kids so easily. But for us as doctors, we have that superpower where we can go and talk to people, and people give us a little more chance to get in and teach them. So to teach them, it'll definitely not be possible for either of us here, not one person, to go and take it further to give a bigger view of what it can be done. But when we are able to join hands together, when we are able to understand sexuality education better, and when we are able to make it kid friendly, like you with our Indian population and with the community that we have around, it is not easier to deliver it with all these terms that we use, to put it like this is it, yeah, this is it. That is going to be very difficult. So if we are able to make it a little kid friendly with a lot of animations, or if we are able to make it in group discussions, in plays, in dramas and everything, it is going to be easier for us now. But there are kids who are already above the age. Like if you consider certain kids who are now grown-ups, they are the ones who are actually suffering through PTSD right now, the age group that is getting into college right now. So to those age groups, it is more like they have a they do not have this channel to go and ask people. Like when I speak about sexuality health education on Instagram, I see people of these age groups, those random kids, those random teenagers coming in and asking like, what is it, what is it, what is it, and it's more personal to them. So if they are able to do it to an anonymous person, to someone, to a stranger, so anonymously, and we can understand that they do not know where to go and ask about it. So when we are able to create a platform where they can come and contact us directly, that would be of better use to a lot of people around, and that could be done with a lot of doctors joining hands together. I feel that would do justice.
Thank you so much. It enlightened me, but it gives some another questions to me that how to offer safe spaces for adolescents to have conversation or dispel sex-related myths and taboo. There is a very much difference, the term which is a myth and a taboo. So how do we
Yeah.
give space to these kind of people? How do you think that our system, I'm not talking about we too can give, but how our system can bring in picture and ask the student fraternity from the naturopaths how they can think, first of all, to think that there is something, and to explore that thinking process, to bring that space for adolescents to have conversations to people like us, or dispel sex related myths and taboos. So how do you think about this?
Okay, this question is like there's a one-line answer for this. Like it is with us understanding about sexuality health education better, and us knowing what is actually a myth, what is actually not. And like for example, if you see, when we don't understand fever ourselves, we cannot treat patients with fever. The same way, when we don't understand sexuality education, I don't think we can do it better with other people. And when it comes particularly to adolescents, I feel like there should be a lot of one-on-one conversations that has been taken up with the permission of parents, because when it comes without the permission of parents, a lot of kids feel guilty about doing that. They have regrets, like, is it actually fine for me to go and talk to them this way? Is it actually fine for me to ask about it? What if they talk to my parents about it? No. So when the most appropriate way of reaching these people, or the most appropriate way of providing a safe space to these people, is like when their parents actually are well knowledge and well equipped about sexuality health education, and they are okay, and they encourage their kids to have a conversation, to learn from us and to understand from us. Then I think it makes the process a whole lot easier than before. I somewhere feel that beyond the teachers, beyond the friends that they have, beyond the social media interactions that they have, every kid's parents have a very strong role to play in with their nature, with whatever they are doing at that point of time, to in determining the kid's nature, in determining who that kid is going to be. Parents have the huge role. So when we are able to equip them and give them the knowledge that they require, I think this adolescent group would get better knowledge in sexuality education. I hope this answer justifies your question.
Yeah, definitely. And it gives me a thought that how we can intervene in some or other way. There are few last questions from my side, that what should be the attitude or behavior of a doctor, of a naturopath doctor, towards this kind of population in India, to reflect positivity on their general and sexual health?
Yeah. So when someone comes to us, the first thing is that, a lot of times when we were kids, or when in the earlier stages when we would go to the doctors, sometimes we would have felt like the doctors are not in favor of us. They are not understanding what we are going through. Sometimes the doctors blame us for not taking care of ourselves. So this is one side. I'm just talking about one group of doctors who do this. And then there is one other group of doctors where they don't initiate conversations much with patients. Like, they have a lot of patients to deal with. They restrict their time to like very small, very little time that they spend with their patients. So in that 5 minutes, they get to talk only about that symptom that they have. So all that we could do is understanding the patient from their side, or by putting ourselves in their shoes, is the first thing that we can do. Secondly, we must have conversations, in-depth conversations about their whole health, or their whole the conversation is directed meaningfully. There's this one skill that I think we as doctors should have in order to make it a little more easier. Like, we should be able to direct the conversations meaningfully through our questions, without even the patient knowing, or without even the patient understanding, like, oh, this doctor is interrupting me. They shouldn't feel that way, but we should be able to direct the conversations in a more meaningful way and have optimal conversations, so that we are able to create that space for the patients, like, oh yes, this doctor is fine. I'm able to convey my needs to this doctor. Okay, I can talk talk about anything to this doctor, and I think I'll find some solution, and my health would be better. My state right now would get better. When you are able to give that belief to your patient, automatically the scenario changes, and there's no more of your effort that's needed. Automatically the patient would come to you, and your job becomes simpler. So every time when you consult your patient, all that you could do is make sure that the patient feels belonged here. I feel that would help us as doctors. Yeah.
So we would like to congratulate you to bring out such topic to the whole doctor community of fraternity, to explain in a very natural or diverse way that we should understand this topic is not just for us or for a one group of community like a psychologist or social worker or two NGOs. It is not for a group of people, it is for every individual, that or for the doctor fraternity to understand and to reach and to rule out these kind of things. So for me, the messages that which I take from your session would be three. First, that we should discuss these things in our classrooms. We should bring out these topics in classroom to understand how depth we should know first to talk to the patient before we talk to the patient. Second, we should understand the burden in India, like epidemiology or prevalence of all these things, which leads to PTSD or anxiety disorder or other kind of psychology or psychiatry disorders. And my third point, which I'm taking from your session, is to that myth is always there or taboo is always there, but how you represent. So we should act as a mirror, and we are the mirror of the society as a doctor. And when we act as a mirror, at least we can represent ourselves to understand the community, because different kind of people will come. We can't advise always to everyone, but we can act as a mirror, as you said lastly. And with this, I think you have given so much of knowledge or intuition to this session and those who are going to listen in future or those who are listening today. And I hope this is a justice for today's topic. Thank you so much to come over this kind of topic to represent whole fraternity with this kind of approach. Thank you so much. I literally appreciate your efforts for this from the team of YG.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the opportunity. And of course, thank you for initiating this whole conversation by bringing up the topic. Thank you so much. It means a lot to me.
So if anyone wants to ask anything, last 10 seconds, if they can unmute themselves or talk to her. Or do you want to ask something? You can always contact in Instagram. That page is not private, it's public. So I can request you to share your details so they can connect to you there also.
Yeah. I'll put it in the chat.
What's your channel name? Can you tell to everyone so they can search?
Yeah, I'm putting it in the chat box. 1 second. So Ashwathika Ashok is my Instagram ID. I think I'm very responsive to the messages in there. Sometimes I go out of the thing, but mostly I do respond to the messages, and I would be very happy to have conversations with the people of our community, especially where we develop connections and where we are able to talk more, discuss more, to come up with new ideas, new sessions, new creative plans to actually up the game of healthcare a little bit more. So yeah, we'll be happy to see you all there having conversations. And if any of you are having anything to ask or say, kindly go ahead. I think we have the last 5 minutes of the session. Anyone? Yes? No?
So, and I would appreciate that everyone should visit her channel, that what kind of work she brings with because it's not easy to put a reel. If anyone thinks it's an easy job, so I should say that it is not easy. It needs a lot of hard work, lot of dedication to create such kind of content which promote the fraternity in a very good way rather than creating a myth about the system. So I should appreciate, and we should appreciate you to continue your work. We should say all the best for your work and to your journey. Thank you so much to come on our platform on your growth, and we hope that we can connect with some other topic with lot more people in future. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.